Hello, everybody. I'm Patricia Angelin, and you are on Facebook Live, All the Feels. It is Wednesday today, all day, the 21st. Oh, the 21st, 2021. And I will now turn this camera around so that you can see me. And we will begin. And I think that I will put it up on a little book so that you can see more of my face. And I think we'll put it up on a couple of books so that you can see more of my face. And we'll move it a little further away. All right, that's a little better. Right. Today, we're going to be talking briefly about two things. And one is something that I haven't done before, which is talk to you briefly about Alba technique. And this is in response to a question that we frequently get, and especially during this time of pandemic when all of us are so closed in and we're all so isolated. But on the other hand, we felt kind of cool in some ways that we have a greater expectation of everything being able to come to us virtually. And I know I have had this own expectation myself that has been growing because of the pandemic. Part of it is because of all of our anxieties in regards to this global pandemic, which makes us feel literally all the feels. And but also we're changing our habits because it's been going on so long, and the lockdowns have been so draconian in so many places in the world, and are still, they keep coming back, they keep coming back, which contributes to the low-level anxiety that all of us have, because none of us know what to expect. We don't know what normal feels like anymore. And this is true for absolutely every single blessed one of us. So that's the elephant in the room that we each need to know exists, because it's not something under our control, and our limbic systems are ready for anything, kind of, or for nothing. So the question that was asked in regard to my work and my colleagues in training and my students at Alba Technique is this. And let's see, my assistant just wrote to this wonderful woman, and she asked, she said she's currently studying with a very accomplished Alba Technique student who is at a high level of attainment and is an actor. And this young woman is taking acting with my former student and current Alban, as I call people who've gotten to self-use. And the woman says that she's currently living outside of New York City, and she's interested in learning the Alba technique virtually in private sessions. Is this possible? If so, how many sessions should I schedule to learn the technique? Now, these seem like really straightforward questions, and they are. However, I'm very much against learning the Alba emoting emotional effector patterns, at least initially privately. And the reason is that we need to be in the room with at least a couple of other people so that we can hear ourselves speak about what we just observed in our bodies after the previous exercise that I will have given you. And we need to hear ourselves talk. We need to hear what other people have observed in their bodies. And we need to hear that from a couple of people to begin to put things together in our excellent prefrontal cortexes, in our critical brains, to figure out what has just happened. Because the work that I do is unlike anything I have ever experienced anywhere in the world. It is entirely and completely experiential. It is using your intellectual faculty, of course, because we're whole persons and we use our minds. But it has to be done in the body. And I have experimented a lot with this because since 1994, when I deep dove into working with Susanna Block in a large group, outside my home state and totally outside my own comfort zones. This particular work cannot be understood by observing it from the outside in other people's bodies. It's the most amazing thing. There's like no way I can describe it to you that will help you really understand it. That's true of me. Everybody who has actually experienced class with me goes, you know, Pat, you tried to explain this to me, but I don't know, I just didn't get it. And I say to all of you, of course you didn't get it, because none of us can until you actually do it. Even if your nearest and dearest was working with me and tried to explain what he or she was doing in class, you still wouldn't get it. It has to be in your body with your limbic system and your neurosystem beginning to shift and change, and you observing the shifts and the changes of your own neurosystem. And it's endlessly fascinating because we human beings are fascinated by ourselves and we're fascinated by each other. And this is the core of it. And you need to get in a physical room with me, not a Zoom room. Susanna Block was very clear with me when she gave me permission to teach. Way back it was over 20 years ago now. I didn't actually teach until I think 2011 I started teaching this. But I've been doing it since 1994. That's a long time. And I've been integrating it into my own body and my own neurosystem in order to get emotional control. But emotional control in the best things. One of my excellent students, and I know he won't mind my mentioning his name, Kevin Shuring, who's an actor, and he grasps very clearly that it's not all about being Pollyanna about everything. It's not about positive thinking, because that is reductive. And Alba technique is not about reducing your emotions to the 6 basic neurological emotions that Susanna Block in her neuro studies identified. And those are anger, fear, sadness, joy, tenderness, and erotic. And according to her theories, those are the 6 that are neurologically basic and standard, each one of us scientifically. But that all the complicated adult emotions we're all having almost all the time are admixtures of 2 and sometimes all the way up to all 6 of those at the same time. So what we do is we deconstruct with you in the room your emotions. This is not without some risks, which is why you need to be in the room in case you should, have an unexpected body reaction, something triggered that you never, knew was even there. So you need to be in the room with me to learn the Alba emoting emotional effector patterns. And it is, I was told by Susanna Block, unethical to teach the emotional effector patterns online, on Zoom. Even if I could hologram, which I'm sure I would be able to eventually, into your room, even the appearance, even, using the virtual goggles or whatever, it is not ethical. I will not do it. And it can't be done rapidly. That's the other thing. We all want things to be boom, 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 boom. Just give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Your neurosystem doesn't work that way, men and women. It just doesn't. Neither does mine. So I need to work with you so that you and I together get to know how your neurosystem works. What are your habits emotionally? Because my sadness, Pat's sadness, does not manifest in my body the way your sadness does, even though there is such a thing as universal sadness. And we both partake of that with all kinds of levels within that. So I have to be in the room to teach you that and to discover with you that. And so her question of, how many private sessions should I schedule to learn this? I can't tell you that directly, and I am not evading it. It's because you need to do it individually. You are a unique individual, and I treat you like a unique individual, and then you need to be initially with other people so that you can see where your uniquenesses lie. As one of my male students said a few years ago, Pat, you help us discover our superpowers. And I went, yeah, I kind of guess that is part of what we're doing. Because within the universality of these 6 emotions, we discover that we aren't who we are in the ways we thought. That you are much bigger. And as one of my students made a meme for me once because of something I said in class, I said, no, don't reduce yourself. You are always more. You will be more and more and more. And it's wonderful and fascinating, and you will always be more. And this work is a way of helping you discover that in yourself in a way that does not overwhelm your body systems. Now, what we can do online is answer a lot of questions when you got, or comments when you guys make them for the Instagram Lives or this Facebook Live. And I have discovered through the pandemic that there are 2 things that I can do ethically and safely for you and with you online. And you can sign up for those if you think that you would enjoy. And in these 2 groups of classes, I can teach you things that you have absolute takeaway on, that I can give you skills that are tools that will help you free yourself and use your own body systems in ways that are good for any human person and will be helpful. And those 2 classes are seated Qigong. You don't have to have known anything about martial arts to take this. I am using martial arts principles that are very, very ancient that only work for healing, and they're only good for human bodies. So I can see you better if I do this. So I can teach you, and I teach those in 3. It's the way our system at Alba Technique, www.albatechnique.com. I think if you go under classes and under ongoing, I hope, I'm sure that a link will be put up for you. I don't know when I'm next teaching, though, and those are 3 sessions, and they're structured to build on each one, and by the end of them you have certain ways that you can breathe that will be different than what you've been taught in yoga and in your other classes. And this pulls certain things together for you, and you can work at it on your own. On your own. You then won't need me anymore to do those things. And what is coming up this coming Monday, April 26th, are the 5 sessions. 5 sessions of what I'm calling somatic sensing, in which I help you use different parts of your body, purely physical. This is not a psychological class. And it's preparatory for you to come to me in person whenever that may be and wherever that may be. It will jumpstart your body's ability to take in the emotional effector patterns in person more easily, more safely. And so the somatic sensing is also structured in 5 sessions. If you can't come to the April 26th one from 1:30 to 2:45 in the afternoon on successive Mondays, we can get around that. I could teach you the content of those classes in a private. I think groups are more effective, but if you can't come to a 1:30 to 2:45 on Mondays, over the next 5 weeks, I get that. We could do something else. But this I can do ethically. That's the point. That is my answer to the 2 questions this woman asked. Can she do it in private? Better not. Better to join a class for these first things. And then later, once you and I get to know her, I can do some things in private that can, push you forward more quickly. I can certainly do Qigong online, and I can do somatic sensing online. Somatic sensing simply is using the Greek word soma, which means body, as you probably know. So it is the ability for you to cognitively sense your body while you are doing things, which is a skill. Oh my goodness. it's a practical approach to what Buddhists would call mindfulness, but in a whole different way. So what it does is it empowers you to be more mindful about your own reactivity and your own body, body ways of doing things. So that is a direct answer to these two questions. Oh yes, how many sessions to learn the technique? Again, it's individual. I am not evading you, but it's individual. The Alba Method Association, which I called into being and in which my colleagues at level 5, certified directly by Susanna Block, who subscribe to the ethical principles, they and we developed certifications and all of this sort of thing. So they say the minimum is 30 class hours with a master teacher. I think at Alba Technique, the way I teach is deeper and it's broader than the original ways that Susanna Bloch taught. She had endorsed everything that I was doing because I was not only interested in working with actors, I'm interested in the emotions of every single human being. So whether you're an IT or HR or a speech therapist, I went to Oxford to work with an eminent speech therapist. You get the idea. It's not just actors, and I know it looks that way when you look on my website, but it's not, because we all have emotions. We all have all the feels, and we all want to have more control so that when we're in difficult times, we don't go off the deep end of being emotional about things or being angry about things or being so sad and depressed about things. And now some of these things are inevitable in life, but how we deal with them. How. So what Alba Technique is about is how. I want to help you to discover your how and give you tools that you can use to expand your sense of yourself, to expand your sense of others in a completely authentic, completely realistic way. And I know for a fact that this can be done, and that the starting point of Susanna Bloch's wonderful identification of these 6 basic neurologically core emotions, it just gives huge stuff to everybody. Now, not everybody needs to have the level of mastery that actors and singers and artists seek. The rest of us don't really need that. So you could get in one of the 3 yearly weekend intensives, you could get enough to really go a long way with your body knowledge and your self-knowledge. But again, to finally answer the question, a minimum of 30, but at Alba Technique, it's a minimum of 60 hours. If I can do it with you in less, and your neural system will allow it, I will certify you to self-use / practitioner so that you'd be able to experiment and practice with it on your own as soon as is humanly possible, because I want people to be able to use this wonderful, wonderful work. So the answer to her question, and I will when I email her, I will say, to watch this, go on YouTube and watch this, because I have directly answered your questions. Most people, it takes 60 to 72 hours with me, class hours with me. And that has been a mixture of larger group, very small group, like a weekend intensive. One person did 1 weekend intensive with me, went to Ireland for the full week intensive, and then did 2 privates. And then he was at self-use. He was perfectly safe to use this. He wasn't going to have any negative, surprise, emotional repercussions of thinking he was going to do one thing and his body going, what we call hijacking, taking him over there, and him like, this is not what I'm doing, this is not what I intend. Which can be, in the early stages, does happen to absolutely everybody, so that's why you need to be with me. So between 60 hours and 72 hours. So in a weekend intensive, which will be coming up for the Memorial Day weekend, I figure for the 29th and 30th of May 2021. Of course, because of COVID, I have gotten the same filtration systems that my dentist has in his treatment rooms. I'm doing a lot of COVID things. I am vaccinated. For those who are not yet vaccinated by May, I will insist on having a negative COVID test and to be able to show me that. I have face shields that I've bought. So, I mean, I do have things in place. I will teach half the class size that I would normally teach, and my class sizes are very small anyway. You probably would be in the room with maybe only three other people. That's how small May is going to be. So if this is something you think you want to do, sign up for somatic sensing and then get up here to New York in person for me for that Saturday and Sunday before Memorial Day weekend. So that's the answer to the questions. And if you do those things, you would have had, with the, I think it's 12 to 15 hours, so you'd be well on your way in a weekend intensive to being able to do this on your own. So there's the answer to that. And I spent more time on it than I expected, but you know, it's going to be good to have this on the YouTube to answer this question, because it's a natural one that people have. But this is so experiential that you must do it in person with me, and you'll be so glad you did, and it'll happen faster. And the preparatory work I've been able to take and put into deliver to you in Zoom, and that might save us a lot of time when we're actually in person, because you will already have an ability to get out of your left brain into your right brain. A friend of mine who is an acting teacher, Anthony Mindel, out in primarily in LA, but he's got classes all over the place now. He wrote a wonderful book early on, which is basically, you know, sort of Hindu philosophy based, a very sort of Indian principles, but his title is fabulous. It is Left Brain, Turn Right. And in essence, to deal with your emotional systems in the brain, that's what I teach you how to do. I teach you how to take your wonderful left brain critical faculties, and I teach you how to become non-judgmental of your body observations. Not an easy thing to do. Everything in our culture teaches us the opposite, but I figured it out, thanks to Susanna Bloch's work as the springboard. So go ahead and do that, and you know we'll get you there. The other thing I wanted to talk about today, the second point, is that yesterday in a class that only people who are at self-use can take, which is the circuit, the emotional gymnasium. So if you get to self-use, then there's another thing that I can teach you online, which is it's like a Nautilus circuit for the emotions, where you go from one emotion to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, and step out, and you are clean, and you're able to observe so many things about yourself, and then we talk about it. And afterwards, she and I had a meeting, because she's on teacher track with me. And she said, I didn't know whether I'd be able to go into the circuit, you know, because I am exhausted. I'm just exhausted. So exhaustion is what I want to address next. And I asked her, what do you mean? Please elaborate. Talk to me. Talk to me. What do you mean by exhausted? And she said, well, I've just come off a 3-week isolation with a cast to do a theater piece of a very dramatic, very difficult play called Pipeline. You can look it up on the play Pipeline up if you want on Google. But it is, particularly with everything that's been going on and the verdict that we in the United States got about the killer of golly, that's editorialized language on my part, and I apologize. I try not to do that. But so I'll back up. The trial of the policeman who was the proximate cause of the death of Mr. Floyd in Minneapolis last year. So with all of that, doing the play Pipeline, you know, is bound to be, I mean, the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times works to make her emotional, her feelings as a woman with the role that she had, you know, very, very difficult. So she was 3 weeks away from her home, isolated because of COVID within a little community of the cast members, working on this very, very emotionally difficult piece. Fortunately, she's got Alba emoting and she's got Alba technique both. And, in one. And so she was able to manage her emotions very authentically and very well. And she did, and she worked at it. But that was over, and they filmed the piece. So that was over late this past Sunday, and now we're on Wednesday. So then she traveled back to her home place on Monday and to get back into her world. So in this time of COVID, what I want to present to all of you is that our fatigue levels, to change the word from exhaustion to fatigue, our fatigue levels are very different than they normally would have been before the onset of the pandemic. And many people use the word exhausted. And as someone who has had a lot of physical illness in her life, a lot, since I was a kid, of varying types, I can tell you that I know what clinical exhaustion feels like. And it ain't what my student was telling me that she had, because she is a woman of tremendously gifted with physical energy and mental energy, just tremendous reserves and tremendous giftedness in that area. And because of this, she accomplishes a great deal. And because of this, she was able to do what she had just done in the previous 3 weeks. So I challenged her, and I am challenging you, to begin to think about the words that you use to describe your feeling, your body feeling of fatigue. To say, I'm exhausted, is very dramatic. And no, you probably aren't. So I want you to clarify, to begin the journey of clarifying for yourself your own words that you use in your self-talk about the physical, emotional states you're in. Another example is young people particularly will frequently say, I'm getting emotional. I don't like it. I'm getting emotional about that. Now, what they mean is that they are getting feelings of either overwhelm and or sadness, like they want to cry, like they're getting choked up. In different people, it can be a lot of different feelings. It's very complicated, actually. But they use one word, emotional. They're getting emotional. Same thing with exhausted. Please don't use that word anymore, unless what you mean by that word specifically is, I've realized that my body has been so close to the edge for so long, and I've been sustaining such a high level of tension, whatever the reason for your tension is, it could be anything, that I know that what I need most is to go horizontal and to sleep. But I also know that when I get horizontal, my body will be so used to going in high gear that it will not be able to let down. That is clinical exhaustion. And when you are on the edge of a clinical exhaustion, it's a very serious thing for you. And I remember, I had a brain tumor at one point, and I remember looking at the three floors of stairs in my building in New York and thinking, oh boy, do I have enough physical energy to get up those stairs, unlock my door, open the door, lock it, and be safe in my own space? And I had to look inside myself and go, whoa, you're almost exhausted. It's an energy thing, exhaustion. And it's like you're now running on empty. When you're exhausted, the tank of your metaphorical car is empty and running on fumes. You might make it to the gas station if you know your car, to refill, or you might not if you're exhausted. So let's say, use the word exhausted for yourself. Use extremely fatigued. Use fatigued. Use very tired, and use tired. So start thinking for yourselves. This is your assignment, those of you listening. This week, before we meet again on Instagram Live next week. Think about your own definitions for your own body tiredness and your own sense of your body as weakness. No negative judgment involved, we hope. Think about what the words you use both to yourself and others are when you are feeling tired from mental exertion, from physical exertion. You're going to find that after physically exercising, it's one kind of tired. But after doing heavy intellectual lifting, say reading, in my case, a neuro study, that's heavy lifting. A person gets mentally fatigued from these things. Too many zooms, the retinas of the eyes, the focusing in and out, these things make our eyes very tired. And then our eyes inform our whole bodies that we are tired. You get the idea. So the name of the game today is exhaustion. And find different words for yourself, 5 different words for levels of your own body fatigue. And please ask me questions about this or make an observation about what you're observing about yourself this week so that we could talk about it some more if you guys bring anything up on Instagram Live next week or on Facebook Live the week after. And of course, do tell your friends that if they subscribe to the YouTube channel, they could just look at this anytime they feel like it if they don't have Instagram or if they don't have Facebook. So there we are. In leaving you, I will turn the camera around just because it's a pretty view of the anemones. And I want you to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth and look at the anemones for 30 seconds before I go off of live. Here we are. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And in through the nose and out through the mouth. And one more. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Thank you for joining us. I'm Patricia Angelin of Alba Technique, and you are at All the Feel.